Thanks very much. I'd just like to start by thanking those of you who've stuck around. Be remiss of me not to notice a mass exodus when I was introduced, so probably not a great start for the confidence. What I have today is an overview of the journey that we've undertaken over about the last 12 months to get to the place that we did for the 1st of March when we launched the Better on Beef campaign. The journey was very much led by data. As Richard touched on before, data and evidence is very important. Ultimately, what we end up with is something that's quite subjective, and that's obviously a difficulty of marketing because we produce work, it's designed to reach a certain audience, and everyone always has a point of view on it. So the more time that we can spend grounding our ideas and grounding our strategy in fact, means that ultimately the endpoint that we get to is a lot easier to judge for effectiveness. This particular slide is a slide that I've shown a few times this week, and what it does is it gives us an overview of the segmentation of the beef category in the domestic market. It's a very neat 30-40-30 split. 30% of our customers or buyers, it says there, drive about 60% of the value. We like to reference value because that's actually the measure of what the product is worth. Using volume measures can be misleading. Ultimately, what we're trying to do in the domestic market is drive greater value. In the coming years, as we see some tightening of volume and global demand increasing, the value of the beef market in the domestic area is something that we're going to need to work hard to maintain. So in doing that, we need to introduce or broaden our base of loyal consumers. If we can continue to only focus on that top 30%, we're asking them to do all the heavy lifting. By sharing the burden and by giving relevant and compelling information and reasons for our medium consumers to eat more of the product, ultimately what that's designed to do is to shift them from a medium consumer into a heavy consumer. This is a picture of my mate. I don't know, he's actually my mate, that's a lie. But he what he is he is indicative of what a beef loyalist or a heavy consumer looks like. He's having a tomahawk there, it looks delicious. But what they do is they generally eat beef around, they shop for beef 36 times a year. Exactly how many times within that, that's probably about 3 times a week. They're versatile, they understand the category. They eat both grilling and roasting cuts. But as I said, they're heavy consumers of protein as a whole. So what we know is that they're carnivores, they're pretty easygoing on what they will eat. So whilst they're loyal to beef, they're loyal to protein as a whole. So they're also heavy consumers of chicken, pork, and lamb, and they're not really big eaters of seafood. The previous position that we used to have for the beef in Australia was nothing beats beef. And that was a superiority statement that was built around the pillars of nutrition, price, and versatility. Now, this particular statement, nothing beats beef, still resonates in beef heartland and to the heavy consumers I spoke about. But when we spoke to family units, who Richard touched on earlier is the new core target we want to try and bring on board and get them eating more of the product, they didn't agree with the statement. And so I had conversations, we did some focus groups, we immersed ourselves with our consumers, and I spoke to them about it, and they said, well, the problem is that in our mind, some things do beat beef. Not always, but if I have the conversation, well, I also think that chicken costs less, so that beats beef on that. It has a perception of being healthier, and so that resonated with me. I thought, oh, that's interesting. I'll just put that in my back pocket. And so I did a bit more research and I spoke to more families, and what I realised was when you look at this particular group here, this is the family unit. The old man, he loves his beef, and we spoke about it before. If he's let loose in the supermarket, he'll come home with about 14 steaks, and no vegetables, and probably a tub of ice cream. So what you need to do is you need to appeal to the mum, and if we can unlock mum and give her permission and inspire her to eat more beef, then ultimately the rest of the family unit will also get to enjoy more beef. Mum's main concern is preparing quick and easy meals, but not at the expense of health or taste. So again, this health message came up, and I thought, oh God, I think we're onto something here. It's really resonating. So when you understand that nutrition and health is one of the main drivers for them, price is also a driver, but that's not something we can control. The market will control that. So what we need to do is we need to underpin our messages around topics or pillars that we can control. Cookability, we can educate consumers on how to eat our product, making sure they're using the right cut for the cook method. And we can also underpin the fact that beef is packed with 13 essential nutrients, and as part of a healthy diet, it's very good for you. So what we did was we picked 3 key messages that we tested with consumers, and they told us that they resonated. Those were that beef is the most nutrient dense of all popular proteins. It has protein, iron and zinc. It's a potent source actually, that's even better than I said. And it fuels your body and mind to get the most out of every day. So if you think about the benefits of iron to the human body, it's integral to muscle development and repairing. If you think about zinc, it's about brain development and your thinking. And if you think about protein, well, that's what keeps you full for longer. And it was those particular pillars that brought us to our new positioning of you're better on beef. You'd have to be walking around looking at your shoes if you hadn't seen the hats and the stickers and all the different collateral we've had out there this week. The particular statement, you're better on beef, was originally designed to communicate this health message that we know that the family units want to hear from. But the great thing about it is it's actually a broader message than just nutrition. What it does is it reaffirms or underpins those who are already eating the product, and we're basically giving them a pat on the back and saying, you guys have been right all this time. You know, beef is the most nutrient dense of all popular proteins. The fact that you're eating it, you're doing a good job, and there's no reason why you shouldn't eat more of it. As Richard touched on, there's a prevailing trend across all Western countries that we need to try and get our diet back in balance. You know, we need to scale back the portion sizes that we're eating. We need to make sure that, you know, that there's a protein, but there's also adequate vegetables, and we're getting fruit in our diet, and we're getting all our minerals. You only have to look at all the technology that people are now wearing on their wrist to keep track of how their health's going. These are all kind of preventative measures. I mean, there's no reason why you can't just have a better diet. You don't have to worry about all those things. So, you know, I think diet's part of it, and exercise is also part of it. So the brief that I took to our creative agencies was we need to drive reevaluation. The research showed us that we had an image problem within the population. There's unfounded studies in the marketplace telling us that there's links between our product and cancer. These are not Australian studies. You know, there's a health perception that, you know, extramuscular fat was causing the problem, but we've got heaps of lean cuts, and if you cook them properly, it's not an issue. There was all these perceptions in the marketplace, and beef was getting a bad rap, and I decided, well, we at MLA decided we need to do something about it. So we needed a campaign to drive reevaluation and give people permission. Let's look at what the issues are, and let's tackle them head on and dispel all of these myths. The guys went away and they spent a bit of time thinking and had a few meetings, and they came back, and where they got to was this idea that beef is the fuel to help you overcome everyday challenges. The way they put it was, you know, it's fuel for everyday champions. And I think it's quite a nice egalitarian message, and basically what it says is by eating beef, everyone can just be a little bit better in whatever they want to achieve every day. I thought it was quite a nice message, because in trying to inspire families and motivate them to eat more of our product, I think it's nice to give people a smile and make them feel proud about what they're doing. This is the TVC, so the TV ad that's been running nationally. You've probably seen it playing around the place at the different community areas, but hopefully if technology's on my side, it might play.
Watching a man that they'll be talking about centuries from now. Touch! Pause! Engage!
Please, technicalities.
He turns him around, stepping, he gets away!
The technique is remarkable.
They're holding their stagger early. Somebody stop him!
Just has to have a bit of a breather, I reckon. The pain is temporary, but glory lasts forever.
He's loving this. He's loving the contest.
Will it be a fairy tale?
He's going to smash it. He's going to smash it. We have lift-off leaders. That was magnificent.
Something to savour, something to remember for the rest of your life.
The best team of the modern
a nice little ad. You'll notice there's a few little creative techniques that we've worked in there. We've actually taken, that's real commentary from various iconic sporting events that have happened over the years in Australia. You've got Ian Thorpe, when he won the gold medal at the World Championships at the age of 15. Kathy Freeman winning gold at the Sydney 2000 Olympics. You've got notable voices like Dennis Cometti, who's I think he's from down south. Most of you guys wouldn't know he's an AFL commentator, but you've got people like Ray Warren, who's a rugby league commentator. And they're just little techniques that are designed to, cut through in quite a cluttered environment these days. You only have to look that in 1990 there was only 5 TV stations, and in 2015 there's as much as 150 TV stations. So in the modern world, we can fast forward through ads or you can try and skip them. It's even more important that we have a compelling and interesting message that makes people stop and think differently about our product. So that TV ad is supported by other channels. We've got large format outdoor. These ads were specifically targeting families of different ages. So here you've obviously got a young kid who's probably about 4 or 5 riding his tricycle, and this was an ad that they presented to me about a year ago, and it's basically my favourite. And they kept trying to come up with other ones, and I said, no, you've got to make this one because I really like it. So, I just love the anonymity of this kid who's just got a challenge in front of him of trying to ride his tricycle up the hill, and the idea that it's beef that's helped him get to the top of the hill. And I just think, you are what you eat, and today I was awesome is a pretty strong line. And then we've got another ad. So these were specifically targeted and placed around the country where there's actually data showing that families with young kids seem to congregate. It's amazing the data that you can collect these days. And then the other, this particular one here is the same thing. This is a teenage kid. So this one was placed where older families come together, call them bustling families, and who hasn't done a massive bomb in the summer? And if you've been wandering around town, you'd see that we've actually gone from those brand ads that set up the new position of you're better on beef into a more direct or functional message that says, packed full of nutrients to power you through a busy week. A nice big T-bone there and the bit of salad that probably gets pushed to the side. But again, trying to actually communicate that the nutrient makeup of the product can help you, achieve your best for longer. So now what I'll do is I'll quickly just rattle through. Obviously the campaign has many touch points. It's been designed to be wide ranging. It's one of the biggest campaigns we've done for the beef industry in a long time. The feedback that had been around, why aren't beef campaigns as successful as lamb? This is a stake in the ground that I can stand up here and tell you that I'm here to change that. And when we're here in 3 years' time, you guys will be saying, how good is it that our beef campaigns are better than the lamb ones? So these are messages again, highlighting everyday challenges that families overcome. 6-metre tree, 1 stuck kite. That's a pain. 28 kids, 1 jumping castle, typical birthday party. And then here we get into the really functional benefits of the product. So these are point of sale recipe cards that if you walk into any of your local butchers, if they're ABG members, Australian Butchers Guild, if you go into Coles and Woolworths, you'll be able to get a range of recipes. These particular recipes were summer based, so we've got a mince recipe on the right, we've got a skirt recipe in the middle, and then we've got a rare roast beef recipe on the left. Power up with nutrient-rich protein, beat fatigue with a plate full of iron, and fuel brain power with the potent source of zinc. Really hard hitting, really straight, really direct, no mucking about. This is what the product benefit is, and this is what it is to you as a consumer. This is a little fancy grid that tells you when those different activities occurred, and this runs through to the end of the financial year. What you'll then see is that we'll do a push in winter where we'll shift our focus to roasting cuts, where we see a natural increase in consumer demand for those. Then there'll be another burst of activity in November, trying to remind people that just because it's coming into Christmas doesn't mean you should stop eating beef. We've got a social idea that will be in market towards the end of May. We've done some work with a famous footballer. There's an insight that the agency came to me and they said, hey, we think it's really interesting that everyone, no matter who you are or what you're into, there's something that you just want to be a little bit better at. Maybe it's square dancing, maybe it's getting the fences done, maybe it's polishing your boots. Whatever it is every one of us wakes up and has a little thing that we'd like to be better at. So what we did is we've actually got this idea where we've got a famous footballer and we asked him what he wants to be better at. He says he wants to be better at bush skills, bush survival skills. So we've teamed him up with a bush expert and they go through a series of challenges, and out the end it comes to fruition that the reason they got better at them was because they'd been eating beef for lunch. Now, that's all the sort of the fluffy above the line stuff, but where it gets really interesting is actually taking the idea if you're better on beef and partnering with retail channels and food service and actually going out and engaging with the consumer and actually demonstrating the benefit. So if you've been wandering around this week, no doubt you've seen our international celebrity chef, MLA corporate chef Sam Burke. He's been doing a fantastic job. He's actually preparing a dinner for Barnaby Joyce this evening. He was out at the Royalists show down in Sydney, and he prepared, I can't see there, twice daily for over 4 days to consumers. I think he chatted to a couple of hundred consumers, talked to them about cook by cut, it's the wrong way around. The versatility of the product, how to prepare it, the fact that there's a lot of light and easy meals that you can prepare. He does a fantastic job. Our trade team have been out, feet on the street, working with all the retailers. You can see all the big ones there. We've got Coles and Woolworths. They've been around here this week, and we've been having really good chats. We have fantastic relationships with the large retailers. We also spend a lot of time engaging with independent butchers. They still represent over 20% of the fresh meat category in Australia, and they're an integral part of the red meat or beef's future. Harris Farm, fantastic. Aldi on the increase. You'll see that Aldi's market share is starting to push up towards 8.5%, 9% as they start to increase their store presence heading across to the west through South Australia and WA in the next couple of years. They've got a unique offering that's resonating with a lot of Australians. As I touched on butchers, we create bespoke content for these guys. It's about, they're one of the last remaining touch points between the consumers and our product. If you head into, the big retailers are starting to evolve their meat offering a little bit. Some of their flagship stores will now have a butcher in store. But in reality, if you walk into a big supermarket, you're faced with a big meat case, not a lot of clear direction on what you should be doing or how you should be doing it. And so what we try and do is create pieces of collateral that can be there to help consumers. The beauty of a butcher is he's an expert in the product, and he's standing there right in front of the consumer who's coming in and wanting advice. They have a competitive advantage over the large retailers, and that's something that we're working with them to try and improve, because they can have a conversation which most of the other retailers can't, and by giving the right advice they'll obviously get return business. Wholesalers obviously play an important part. They're a conduit into the food service category. If we can get them to be excited about our ideas, then that will carry through into other touch points. There was an interesting conversation I had with a wholesaler yesterday who was talking about the supply that they have into the pie category. So when you go to the football and you have a pie, it's obviously a beef pie, and with the pressures that are coming through in the future on that product, obviously the cost of having a pie at the footy is going to go up. So, giving them compelling reasons to continue putting beef in the pies is important as well. Chef education. If you've been in our innovations tent this week, you will have seen this big poster. There's been mixed feedback on what it looks like. The rationale behind it was if you're dealing with chefs and people in food service, you can actually give them a truer representation of what the animal looks like and how it comes together. If you were to put this in front of a consumer, I'd probably say it's not suitable. But given chefs are also experts, we need to train them up on how to use it. Apologise for the resolution, but if you actually head next door when we have a beer afterwards, you'll be able to see a little bit more. What it actually covers off is the muscle group, and then underneath it teaches you or gives you education around how you could prepare it. So for example, the chuck up on the right there has actually got braised, steak, slow cook, burger, mince, and pulled. So that's an example. So obviously by educating chefs, they can look at the cuts and they can start to think about some innovative menu solutions. National Food Service, as I just touched on, it's a massive part of the consumption of beef. You only have to look at some of the names that are up there and think about exactly what business they're in and what they represent to get an idea of exactly how big that is. McDonald's alone is one of the biggest sellers of beef in Australia, and it certainly has a massive marketing spend. Qantas, Spirit Hotel Group, we do a lot of work with them. Mad Mex, Spotless Catering, they do a lot of football stadiums. So if you go down to the MCG, they look after all the catering there. There was an interesting stat I heard yesterday that they lowered the price of pies at the football because they got too expensive by about 10%, and they saw their sales triple. So, interesting stuff, how sensitive the market can be. Just such a small price decrease drove such an increase in volume and sales for meat pies. I know I like a pie. As I just touched on, Spirit Hotel Group, a fantastic group. They got behind an initiative which was a stake and mandate, and the idea was to raise money for cancer research. So we put together some collateral for them. It was a men's health initiative. It was a stake for $20. It went very well. $2 went towards the cancer charity. So what I'll finish on is just an engagement piece that we're putting together for local communities. As I touched on before, Nothing Beats Beef is more than just a nutrition statement. It's actually a statement that the whole of industry can stand behind and be proud. We've got a fantastic industry here, and it's true that you're better on beef. So what we're looking to do is we've got an initiative, a group called the Beef Brigade, and they're going to ask the Australian community to tell us why their local area is better on beef. Whether it's actually directly linked to the industry or as a result of the industry adding value to the local area, they can put a submission to us on what it is that the beef industry has done to make their local community better, and then they get to nominate a local project in the area that they'd like help completing. So whether that's a park at the a play area at the local park, perhaps it's a skateboard ramp for all the skaties, or anything in particular they want to do, and then they submit that and we'll put that to vote. And so the local community then gets rallied to fall behind their submission, and the best submissions will then go out and we'll send the Beef Brigade. That's not actually them, that's just for the poster, by the way. If you're going, those guys couldn't build anything. It's because they're actors. And the idea is that we'll then go out and complete those projects in the local community. We'll film that, and then we'll be able to share the videos that we've got through all our social channels. And again, we're just trying to negotiate to have hopefully a football personality or someone who will resonate with the population to be the lead in that. And given they're footballers, they probably won't pick up the tools, so we'll actually have to have proper builders helping them with that. But keep an eye out for that. Obviously, Rockhampton's a fantastic area. Wherever you've travelled from to be at Beef Week, I'd love for you to go back to your local community and get behind this project. It's just a nice little opportunity for us to really demonstrate the idea of you're better on beef and how it transcends just a nutrition message. And it's a good opportunity if you get a new playground for your local town. That's me. I'd just like to thank you again for sticking around to listen to it. There's obviously been a common theme today that everyone who's stood up and presented has been very passionate about their particular area of experience. I'm very passionate about marketing, and I'm also very passionate about the beef industry, and so I look forward to standing up here again in 3 years' time and genuinely being able to demonstrate how the beef advertising is the best in the country. Thank you very much.